Ever catch yourself, like, really wondering why people believe the things they do?
Especially the stuff that seems, well, a little out there.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today, diving deep into that whole belief thing.
How do these beliefs take root?
And sometimes are the things we're so sure about maybe not as solid as we think.
It's a fascinating question, really.
And to help us untangle it all, we've got this awesome conversation with, get this, an AI assistant.
An AI.
Yeah. And let me tell you, it is packed with insights about how our minds work.
It's like having, what's the word, like a super-powered research librarian.
Right.
One that can just pull all these threads from history and psychology and even politics to make sense of this whole belief thing.
Exactly. And you know what? One of the first things that popped up in this AI chat was...
What's that?
The Bible.
Oh, wow.
And specifically why some people see it as, like, literal historical fact.
That's interesting.
It is, right? So what's the deal with that? Why do people hold on to that so strongly?
Well, the AI suggests it comes down to faith. It's like faith acts as a bridge between what we can see and touch and, well, the divine.
The stuff we can't quite grasp, right?
Exactly. Those hopes and aspirations that go beyond what our senses can tell us. And in this view, the Bible, being divinely inspired, holds this inherent truth, not because of scientific proof or anything like that, but through the strength of that conviction.
That spiritual conviction.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting to contrast that with your own experience. Didn't you mention you were pretty skeptical of some of that stuff early on?
Oh, yeah, totally. Talking snake, worldwide flood. I mean, come on. Some of those stories just never really clicked for me,
Yeah, I get that.
I was always that kid in Sunday school laughing, but LW.
And that's actually a key point that the AI brings up, that we all exist on this spectrum of belief.
Spectrum, okay.
Yeah. Some people, they lean really heavily on faith, while others, like yourself, gravitate more towards things that can be observed or analyzed.
Stuff you can test and poke at, right?
Yeah, right. And that's where your learner profile really shines through. Always seeking evidence and understanding.
There's that learner thing again.
It keeps popping up. But seriously, it's that drive to figure things out.
To get to the bottom of things. I like that.
Exactly. So how does this AI explain why people hold on to beliefs even when they might seem, well, a bit irrational to others?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. Well, one really fascinating idea the AI brings up is the power of just cultural conditioning.
Cultural conditioning, okay.
We're like sponges, especially when we're young, soaking up the beliefs of our family and our community.
Like osmosis, right? Just absorbing it from the people around us.
Exactly. And it's almost like an unspoken agreement, a way to belong, a way to make sense of the world around us.
Makes sense. It's like, I don't know, how certain families are diehard sports fans. Like you just grow up bleeding those team colors.
Perfect example. And then there's also the need for comfort and meaning.
Okay, so that's a basic human thing, right? We all need that.
The AI points this out as a really big factor because the world can be a pretty chaotic place, And religion, with its promise of an afterlife or divine purpose, it offers solace. It's like a framework to hang all your worries on.
I guess that might explain why I started questioning religious stories so early on. It wasn't really about rebellion or anything.
More like seeking a different kind of comfort.
Yeah. My brain just needed that comfort of understanding the why, of finding evidence and logic.
And again, that's so classic learner personality. The AI actually suggests some people just naturally develop critical thinking skills earlier than others, which might have fueled those early questions you had.
It wasn't about being a contrarian. It was about wanting to understand, to dig deeper. Exactly.
It's about that drive for knowledge, for making those connections. So we've got cultural conditioning, the need for comfort. What other gears are turning in our belief-forming brains?
Spill the beans.
All right, here's where things get really intriguing. The AI introduces this concept of affinity over rationalism.
Affinity over rationalism. I like the sound of that already.
Now, have you ever noticed how sometimes feelings and social connections seem to matter more than cold, hard facts?
Are you kidding? All the time. Think about those superheated debates on social media. It's like people cling even harder to their beliefs when they're challenged, even if, all the evidence is stacked against them.
That's it. And the AI explains this is because of that sense of affinity, that belonging to a group, a shared identity. It's powerful stuff.
Wow, so it pushes us towards belief that that offer comfort and connection.
Even if they don't necessarily hold up under scrutiny.
It's not even about being right or wrong sometimes. It's about feeling like you're part of something bigger.
Exactly.
So someone like me, wired for logic and evidence, maybe they're less swayed by all that group stuff.
That's what the AI seems to suggest, yeah. It's like you're wired to seek out the why behind things, the mechanisms, rather than just accepting something at face value because everyone else does.
That is, wow, mind-blowing. It's like a whole new level of understanding myself. But, okay, if this affinity can be so strong, does that mean it's always a good thing?
That's a great question, and that's where things take a bit of a darker turn. While affinity can definitely be a powerful force for good, for connecting us to communities and causes we believe in, the AI also shows how it can be, well, exploited.
Exploited, uh-oh.
It can lead us down some pretty unsettling paths. Think about some of the most divisive forces in history. Racism, conspiracy theories, even toxic relationships. The AI points out those same psychological mechanisms we've been talking about, especially that pull of affinity, play a role in these scenarios too.
Hold on, are you trying to say believing in, like, a conspiracy theory is similar to having faith in a religion?
It's not about saying they're equivalent, but rather that the underlying mechanisms, the way our brains latch on to those beliefs, can be surprisingly similar.
It's all about those in-group, out-group dynamics. Finding comfort in shared beliefs, even if they could be harmful.
You got it.
So even though the intent and consequences of these beliefs are totally different, the way our minds process them might share some common threads.
Exactly. The AI makes a really crucial distinction here. It's not about, condemning all forms of belief. It's about recognizing how these patterns of thought can be manipulated.
Okay, now I'm officially nervous. How does all this manipulation stuff play out in the real world?
Well, that's where we start to see how people who want power, who want to control the narrative, can tap into these very human needs for belonging, certainty, meaning.
And this takes us straight into the world of
Politics.
Uh-oh. Never a good sign. What kind of, political shenanigans is this AI talking about?
Get ready, because we're about to dive into the playbook of some pretty notorious figures, folks who've absolutely mastered the art of exploiting these very belief mechanisms we've been talking about.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's unpack those tactics.
Welcome back to our deep dive into, the world of belief.
It's pretty wild out there.
It is. Lots of contradictions and twists and turns. We've seen how our need for connection and meaning can drive us towards these beliefs that offer, comfort and a sense of belonging.
Right. But we've also kind of started to peek behind the curtain a little, haven't we?
We have.
Seeing how those same needs, they can be, exploited.
Right. Twisted by people who want to manipulate and control.
Not cool.
Not cool at all. But you know what? The AI doesn't just leave us hanging with all that doom and gloom.
Oh, good. Because I need a little pick me up after that last segment.
I hear you. So get this. The AI actually lays out some pretty concrete ways to, as it calls it, immunize populations against manipulation.
Immunize. I like the sound of that.
Right. It's like building up those defenses against, those mental viruses.
Okay, so what's the antidote? How do we make ourselves less susceptible to all that sneaky manipulation stuff?
Well, the AI suggests kind of a multi-pronged approach, and it starts with something that might sound, familiar.
Hit me with it.
Education reform.
Education. But we're not just talking about stuffing more facts into kids' heads, are we?
The AI is totally with you on that. No more rote memorization. What it emphasizes is critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
And media literacy.
Okay, so not just what to think, but how to think.
Right. Give students those tools to analyze information, evaluate sources, really distinguish between fact and opinion. It's like giving them a mental compass for navigating the ever-expanding ocean of information.
Especially online, right? Social media, where things can get super murky.
Exactly. It's like teaching them to be mini detectives, question everything, look for clues, really try to uncover the truth.
I love that. So, are there any places that are actually doing this? Successfully?
Absolutely. The AI points to some real-world successes like Finland.
Finland. They always seem to be ahead of the curve.
They do. So they've actually integrated media literacy into their national curriculum. And get this, studies show that it's made their population significantly less susceptible to, fake news and propaganda.
Wow. It's like giving their citizens a mental vaccine against all that misinformation. I wonder if they're accepting international students.
You never know. But seriously, it's pretty inspiring to see that it actually can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah.
That gives me hope.
Right. And the AI also stresses, a broader kind of civic education too, not just media literacy, like teach kids about, I don't know, democracy, their rights, how to be engaged citizens.
So not just how to spot a fake news article, but how to actually, participate, advocate for change.
You got it. It's about creating a culture where, critical thinking and respectful debate are valued, which makes it so much harder for those manipulators to get a foothold.
Okay, so education, that's one piece of the puzzle. What's the next line of defense?
The AI, it puts a lot of emphasis on, while strengthening independent media.
Independent media.
Okay, remember, information is power, right? And those who control that narrative, well, they often hold the reins. A strong, independent media, it acts as a watchdog, keeps those in power accountable and provides the public with accurate information.
But here's the thing. We live in a world of echo chambers and filter bubbles, where people, they tend to gravitate towards news sources that already confirm their beliefs. So how do we break out of that cycle?
That is a tough one. And the AI has a few ideas: supporting quality journalism, promoting that media literacy so people can actually, evaluate sources better, and even exploring, I don't know, regulations.
Oh, regulations. That feels kind of, I don't know.
Oh, no, it's tricky.
Where's the line between protecting free speech and, preventing those really harmful lies from spreading?
Right. It's a balancing act for sure. And the AI, it really emphasizes the need for transparency and democratic oversight with any kind of online content regulation. It's not something governments or tech companies should decide on their own.
It's got to be collaborative, right?
Yeah, totally. It needs policymakers, tech experts, journalists, and most importantly, the public.
It's like what we were saying about the AI itself. It's about, using these tools responsibly.
Exactly. So it's not just about building those better defenses, but also creating a healthier information ecosystem where, truth and accountability can actually thrive.
Okay, I'm digging this. So we've got education, independent media. What else is part of this immunity puzzle?
This one might surprise you. The AI brings up economic and social stability.
Wait, what? What does, our wallets have to do with all this?
Oh, think about it. When people are feeling economically insecure or maybe socially marginalized, they're way more susceptible to, those fear-based appeals.
Those divisive messages that pit us against each other.
Exactly. When you're struggling or feeling like you don't belong, you're more likely to grasp at any solution.
Even if it means blaming someone else or falling for those promises that are too good to be true.
Right. And the AI, it suggests policies that aim to, reduce poverty, create opportunities, those stronger safety nets.
So it's not just about individual resilience, but actually addressing those systemic issues.
Exactly. Create a society where people feel safe, secure, hopeful.
It's like building a foundation, right?
Yeah.
So people are less likely to be swayed by those who prey on their anxieties.
That's it. That's the key. And that actually leads into another really intriguing idea that AI brings up: fostering more exposure to diversity and building stronger communities.
Okay, so now we're connecting the dots. It's
Right.
like we're building immunity on, multiple levels here. Individual, societal, even interpersonal.
You're getting it. By breaking down those in-group, out-group barriers, we can create a society where people are less likely to be, manipulated into fearing or hating those who are different.
It's like building bridges, right?
Yes. Bridges of understanding and empathy make it way harder for those who thrive on division to tear us apart.
And the AI also mentioned something about transparency and accountability in, the government and big institutions, right?
It did. Because when people feel like, I don't know, they have a voice, that the system is actually working for them, they're less likely to buy into those alternative explanations,
The conspiracy theories and all that.
Right. So it's about building trust in legitimate systems instead of, fueling paranoia and distrust.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's this big picture effort, huh? Building a better world, basically.
It is. And with all these strategies working together, we can actually start to create a society that's less susceptible to that manipulation we've been talking about.
Man, it's a lot to process, but also super hopeful. It's like we got a roadmap now.
We do. And even though the journey ahead might be, long and challenging, even small steps can make a difference. The AI points to examples all over the world where communities and countries have successfully used some of these strategies.
Okay, so it's doable. But let's get personal for a second. What can we, as everyday people, do to, make things better? Besides educating ourselves and being mindful of our own biases and all that.
Well, the AI really stresses the power of actually talking to each other.
Talking, like
Yeah.
with words.
Yes. Engage in constructive dialogue, especially with those who we disagree with. Actually listen to different perspectives, try to understand where they're coming from, build those bridges.
It's like what we're doing right now, having this deep dive conversation. We might not agree on everything, but we're, grappling with these ideas together.
Exactly. And we can also support those organizations doing the good work, promoting critical thinking and media literacy.
Putting our money where our mouth is, right?
Right. Back those who are, creating a more resilient and informed society. And finally, never underestimate the power of just staying vigilant.
Being aware.
Yes. Question everything. Don't take things at face value. Cultivate that healthy skepticism,
It's like that old saying, trust but verify.
Exactly. And with that in mind, I think it's time to shift our focus to a specific case study that's been kind of looming over this whole conversation.
Uh-oh, you talk about Project 2025? Because that name has been giving me the chills ever since you first mentioned it.
Yep, that's the one. And, well, this is where things take another really interesting turn.
It's intriguing. Or terrifying.
A little both, honestly. The AI's analysis, it actually suggests that Project 2025, despite its goals, might actually make the U.S. population more vulnerable to the very manipulation tactics we've been dissecting this whole time.
Wait, what? That's a bombshell. Okay. I am so ready for this deep dive. Tell me everything. All right, so we're back and ready to really dig into this whole Project 2025 thing.
It's a big one.
You said it might actually make us more vulnerable to manipulation, even though it's supposed to fix American politics.
Yeah, the AI, it doesn't pull any punches here. It really highlights how Project 2025's whole approach, while it's, framed as this path to a stronger America, it could actually be setting us up for, well, more of the same tactics we've been talking about.
Okay, I'm officially freaked out. Where do we even start with this? What are the biggest red flags the AI is waving?
One of the major concerns is this focus on controlling the narrative, especially when it comes to education. Remember how we talked about the importance of, critical thinking and diverse viewpoints?
Yeah, like being able to think for yourself.
Right. Well, Project 2025 seems to be pushing in the opposite direction.
You're talking about that whole patriotic education thing, right?
Exactly. The AI unpacks this really carefully, showing how it often boils down to promoting a very specific ideologically driven viewpoint.
While ignoring or even actively suppressing other perspectives.
Exactly. It's like saying this is the right way to think about America and anything else is, unpatriotic.
But wouldn't that completely go against the whole idea of critical thinking and open inquiry? The stuff we've been saying is crucial to build up resistance to manipulation. It's like, I don't know, trying to create a nation of robots that just parrot back the approved talking points.
That's exactly what the AI sees as the danger here. By censoring certain topics and viewpoints, even ones that are uncomfortable or challenging, it creates this environment where students aren't equipped to think for themselves.
They can't grapple with the complexity of the world or recognize when they're being fed propaganda.
Right. It's like sending them out into the world without those, critical thinking antibodies.
And it's not just about education either, is it? The AI also mentioned how Project 2025 wants to, change the structure of power in America, mess with government institutions.
It does. And this is where all that, deep state and draining the swamp rhetoric comes in.
Yeah, it's been a constant theme for a while now.
And the AI, it breaks down how Project 2025 goes way beyond just rhetoric. It actually advocates for this massive overhaul of the federal bureaucracy.
Getting rid of the people who know how things work.
Replacing career civil servants with, loyalists. People who align with a specific ideology.
Isn't that the textbook definition of a power grab?
Yeah.
Trying to rig the system.
The AI suggests it's definitely a risk. Because by concentrating power like that and dismantling those checks and balances, you create a system that's, ripe for corruption.
And abuse and even more manipulation.
Right. It becomes less about serving the public and more about serving a particular agenda.
We're talking full-on dystopia novel territory here.
Yeah.
Where anyone who questions the status quo is, labeled an enemy.
The AI also points to the reliance on, fear and division as political tools, something we've seen play out a lot recently.
The demonization of immigrants, the constant warnings about all these threats.
Right. It's like they're playing on our deepest fears.
Turning us against each other so we don't see what's really going on.
And Project 2025 seems to double down on these tactics, framing its whole agenda as this epic battle against these radical forces
that are supposedly going to destroy America as we know it.
Exactly. It's a powerful narrative, especially for those who are already feeling, vulnerable.
Scared or left behind.
Right. But the AI highlights how these tactics, while they might be effective in the short term, they can have some really devastating long-term consequences.
Because the more we focus on fear and division, the easier it becomes for, those in power to exploit those emotions.
Exactly. It's a vicious cycle. And there's one final piece of this puzzle that the AI explores: the potential impact of Project 2025 on individual liberties. Things like LGBTQ plus rights, reproductive health care, freedom of expression.
Yeah, we've seen some really alarming trends lately, like trying to restrict access to abortion, rolling back rights for transgender people, censoring certain books.
It's like this slow erosion of our basic freedoms.
And Project 2025 seems to be right in line with all that.
It does. It advocates for policies that, curtail individual rights in the name of traditional values or national security. The AI is really concerned about the implications here.
It's a slippery slope, isn't it? When people feel like their rights are under attack, like they can't express themselves or live their lives authentically, it creates this climate of fear and self-censorship.
And that's exactly the kind of environment where manipulation and control can thrive.
So what you're saying is the AI paints a pretty bleak picture of what America might look like if Project 2025 actually succeeds. A society where, dissent is silenced, our rights are gone, and all the power is in the hands of a few. That's terrifying. Is there any hope? Or are we just doomed to, descend into this dystopian nightmare?
The AI doesn't offer easy answers, but it does remind us that the future isn't, set in stone. Our choices matter. And here's the key. Those same strategies we talked about earlier, those ways to immunize ourselves against manipulation, they can also be used to fight back against this Project 2025 agenda.
So it's not just about, defending ourselves, but actively building a better world.
Exactly. Promoting critical thinking, supporting independent media, building communities, fostering trust, all of these things can help create a society that's less susceptible to that kind of fear-based manipulation that Project 2025 seems to embrace.
It's about empowering people.
Yeah.
Creating a culture that values truth, justice, human rights. It's a tall order, but man, it's inspiring.
It is. And it's a reminder that we have the power to choose a different future.
A future where manipulation and control don't win.
Exactly. So this whole Project 2025 analysis, it's kind of like a wake-up call, a reminder that this fight for a just and equitable society, it's ongoing, and we all have a part to play.
Man, this deep dive has been a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Fascinating, concerning, and now, I don't know, I feel kind of fired up.
That's the spirit. We've explored, how belief works, how insidious manipulation can be, and those pathways to building a more resilient, informed society.
And hopefully it's left you, our listeners, with a better understanding of all these forces that are at play.
Maybe even a few ideas about how you can get involved.
So, to all our fellow deep divers out there, stay curious, stay engaged, and never stop questioning. The future is in our hands.